pointing an accusing finger at the tall, ungraceful figure of Lincoln. "This is how he arouses the masses. This is why the northern states threaten rebellion and revolt. This is why the southern states must deal with agitators attempting to incite the slaves against their moral and proper state of benevolent servitude." Lincoln smiled, but this time his voice held a sharp edge. "If you wish to argue the virtues of slavery, perhaps you would care to have it tried on you personally?" "I have heard enough. Death?" the third judge asked. "Not until he and his words are forgotten. We don't need any more martyrs." "Rendition to Fortress Monroe," the first judge said. "The Merrimac is leaving for Hampton Roads tomorrow with other prisoners. They will have plenty of room for this Lincoln." "Indefinite detention," the second judge added, "to be kept solitary, so that he might no longer communicate to others his lies about the motives and wisdom of our founders." A wise man would have sat silently as Lincoln was taken from the courtroom. Chamberlain knew that. Only by staying silent would Chamberlain have a chance to avoid drawing too much attention to himself in a place where the hooded officers served as judge and jury. But perhaps it was asking too much of a professor of rhetoric to remain silent under such circumstances, after having heard such words. Chamberlain stood up, a strange crawling sensation arising between his shoulders as he heard a sound behind him and imagined a rifle barrel aimed at his back. "Our greatest founder, George Washington, would never have approved of this. I have read his papers." The first judge halted a motion toward the bailiff aimed at silencing the prisoner, and instead gazed at Chamberlain. "How did you gain access to the papers of the first president and founder?" "Is it not more important what I read there? That Washington did not become president, as our histories read, because he was installed by the military and the great landowners. He was instead elected by popular vote. So was John Adams, and so was Jefferson." The second judge sounded amused. "And Jefferson's co-president, Aaron Burr? Are you claiming that he was elected by popular vote as well?" Chamberlain swallowed, his throat dry at the taunting tone of the judge. They were playing with him, letting his own words condemn him. Well, so be it. The tribunals convicted all who came before them, so any hope of release had always been illusory. Burr was elected vice president. It was the price for that, for demanding the authority to deal with the military officer corps packed with Federalist Party supporters by President Adams, that led to this. Burr dismissed every Federalist from the officer ranks, replacing them with Democratic Republican loyalists, and every administration after followed the example, not of Washington, but of Adams and Burr. That is what turned our republic into a sham. The military of the United States has become a tool and an instrument of partisan politics. It does not serve the people. It serves those whose power and wealth control the government." "We are free," the first judge said. "Free because those who would defame our history and the motives of those who protect us are punished for their crimes. 40 years, agricultural service," he finished. 40 years on one of the plantations, laboring in conditions at least as bad as those suffered by the Negro slaves. His odds of surviving the sentence were very small, but that was the intent of the judges. Chamberlain was grabbed by one of the guards and marched out along with Lincoln. The two men stood side by side for a moment as their guards received orders, the tall man from Illinois gazing somberly down the hallway. "Thank you for your courage, sir," Lincoln said in a soft voice. "I do not know what our lot may be, whether destruction or a rebirth of liberty, but whatever our fate, we must ourselves be its author and finisher." Then the guards had prodded Chamberlain in one direction, while Lincoln was led off in another. It was 1863. The fate of the Republic had taken an ugly turn just over 20 years ago, when its military had fully become an arm of politics. Now, Chamberlain reflected bitterly, his own fate had been changed for the next 40 years by the curiosity which had led him to seek the truth about the early years of his nation, and by his inability to keep his mouth shut in the face of injustice. Except for an occasional thump with